Near the end of your discussion, you mentioned that merely discussing the tensions between the two strains of liberalism would be an important first step. Can you envision the following one or two steps, tangible steps, that should be taken to resolve these tensions, given the extensive international challenges that you mentioned?
Yes, well, you're quite right that the first step is then to realize that there are some tensions in liberalism that play out in liberal internationalism, and which we have to face to a much larger degree than earlier. And one of the concrete ways to begin that would be to look closer at some of the items that I talked about. If sovereignty is both a blessing and a curse sometimes, how do we then create a situation where it is more a blessing than a curse? If the liberal global economy produces transnational goods as well as transnational bads, how do we better create a situation where there are more transnational goods than transnational bads? How should international institutions be constructed, and how can they be effective? Some of these questions are very pertinent if you want to take the next step from looking at the tensions in liberal ideas about world order.
You discussed the notion of intelligent leadership, or perhaps lack thereof. Does a resolution, in the way that you see it, of the tensions in liberalism promise a more effective leadership role of Western democracies?
I don't think so much that we're out of ideas. I think to a larger extent that we have tended to cheat ourselves into thinking that we are doing fairly well and we can go on like this and things will be relatively okay, and the problems are all manageable. And my worry is that this might not be the case. But you see, my analysis is an analysis written by a scholar, pointing out the challenges that a liberal world order faces. And I hesitate to be the one that is going to stamp out all the solutions, because that is really not my prerogative as a scholar. As a scholar, I would like to remain on the analytical ground of pointing out what I think are the major problems. But it must, to a major extent, be left to the countries and people concerned what they want to do about these problems. I, of course, hope that I have shed some fresh light on them that will animate this further discussion about political measures.
As a scholar then, speaking purely theoretically, you mentioned that a major failing of the international system was the creation, perhaps, and the allowance of the international financial crisis. What type of, in your words, robust international framework would you imagine would have been effective in meeting this challenge?
More fundamental solutions to the financial crisis will have to call for changes both at national levels and at the international level. I've indicated what some of that might be, and I am hopeful in the sense that some of the discussion now seems to be moving in that direction. I mean, a few years ago, you could not talk about the Tobin tax without calling forward awkward smiles and jokes. And now it's just a more serious matter whether there should be some tax on these transactions to the benefit of all. That's one movement that I'm seeing. I worry that there is too little discussion about the opaque financial products that have developed in the context of financial deregulation, both nationally and internationally over the last 20 years. Because what we saw in the financial crisis was that even the experts were not capable of evaluating these products. And I worry whether it will not be necessary with some more serious regulation of or limits to more esoteric financial products, the value of which is very difficult even for experts to ascertain. But I'm encouraged by the notion that there is now some discussion of this. Hopefully it will move in the right direction.
Professor Sørensen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.